The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. These videos are aligned with standards set by the Tennessee Department of Education. For more professional development videos, check out our website at www.mtsu.edu/CEM.
So we're moving to our second session now, and I'd like to invite our two presenters to join me on screen. I'm really happy to introduce two familiar faces, Dr. Johnna Paraiso, ESL Instructional Technology Facilitator, Rutherford County Schools, and Dr. Graciela Arroyo-Stewart, ESL Teacher, Harris Middle School, Bedford County Schools. So in our second session today, these two experienced educators will offer ideas on engaging with families of English learners. Please remember, participants, to post any questions you may have for our presenters on the live stream chat. So Dr. Paraiso, Dr. Arroyo-Stewart, please let us hear from you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Graciela Arroyo-Stewart, and for short, Dr. G. And I am so glad to be with you and with my partner. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Johnna Paraiso, and I am the one of the instructional facilitators for Rutherford County Schools.
So we are going to be presenting engaging with families of ELL students. And this has been a topic dear to both of our hearts. And so we're going to be sharing that with you today. All right, the definition of family engagement. There is a difference between parental involvement and family engagement. All right, collaboration between families and educator that accelerates students' learning. In family engagement is when the family is involved in giving their opinion or their ideas of what we can do to help the students' learning. Whereas parental involvement, it just involves the school system and the staff doing all the work. So I definitely do love I definitely do love family engagement more than parental involvement. The core beliefs are that all families have dreams for their children and want the best for them. All families have the capacity to support their children's learning. Families and school staff should be equal partners in their children's learning. The responsibility of building partnership between school and home rests primarily with the school staff, especially school leaders. But if we work together on these core beliefs and believe this about our families, we will be able to work together. And we're going to show you some examples of that as we move along. What we're going to discuss today is research, what research says about engaging families of ELL students. What happens to ELL students when they know that their parents are involved in their education? We're going to share educational courses in the community that have been developed. Dr. Paraiso has done a lot, and I'm going to try to remember some of the stuff that she shared with me that has helped get parents involved in the education of their children, and some of the stuff that we've done in Bedford County too. We're going to also talk about maybe creating courses that could help ESL teachers and ELL parents be involved together. We're also going to share about positive translation, positive sports, positive school activities. There's so many positive ways that we can have parents involved. And we're also going to share some celebrations of culture and some celebrations that we use in order to get parents involved. So there's a lot of positive things that could come out of this. I want to share with you what research states when you have parents involved. You know, one of the standards that was mentioned was about social skills. Well, when parents are involved, research shows that social skills become better with the parents and the teachers. And of course, that's a given. That's something we should realize already. So that is important. Higher grades and test scores. Improved attendance. Sometimes we know that this has been a big issue because sometimes the parent doesn't know what to do to get the child to school, or there's some other issues going on. Well, if you have the parent involved within the educational system of the child or children in the school system, it does help them attend school with better attendance. It also helps improve behavior. I've seen this throughout the years that I've been in education, that because of my relationship with the parents and my other ESL teachers that work with me, because of our relationship with the parents being so strong, we see improvement in the behavior. And research also states that families that are engaged in the learning have faster literacy acquisition, adapt better to school, are promoted more frequently, and earn more credits. Enroll in higher level programs, have higher graduation rates, and they are most likely to enroll in post-secondary education. And Colorín Colorado is one of the researches, one of the articles that I read. It's a company that does research on this that has a lot of information and statistics showing that this is true. ELL family engagement. And this is just some ideas that I've discovered throughout the years. I am bilingual, by the way. I'm Cuban and Puerto Rican. So I have discovered that a lot of my students that are from Mexico and Guatemala have a different dialect in Spanish than what I do. So what I have done is I have YouTube a lot of the cultures in my classroom. I also had students from Somalia. They don't speak Spanish. They speak totally different than Spanish, of course. And so I've YouTube and I've learned about their cultures. This is something that is so cool about our technology that we can use today. We can go back and look up things through technology and discover things about cultures, different languages, what goes on in their culture. And so this is one way that could help you if you are, you know, an ELA teacher, a math teacher, and you have a student from a different country. This would help you understand how they deal with education. I've seen a lot of YouTube videos on different cultures and languages. And here's another way: find out from your students how their parents are involved in their education. And this is something that we talked about, me and Dr. Paraiso. And a lot of times the parents from another country see you as the ultimate supreme person in education. So they don't question your methods. So the way that you help them be involved is by letting them know, you know, that they are welcome into your classroom. They are welcome. Use your translators. Use whatever method you can to let them know that you want them involved in the education of the student. And as you develop this relationship, they begin to feel comfortable. I've had a lot of parents that feel comfortable around me because I include them in the education of their child. Take time to know who the parents are and as well as who your students are. And be sensitive to the parents that are not used to working with teachers due to trust issues, whether it was positive or negative. You know, politically, sometimes parents are paranoid, you know, to come into the school system. They see it as a government building. So that might be another way that you could possibly develop a relationship with them. It's outside of the school building.
Okay, and I'm back on. My power went out.
So we are actually on your PowerPoint.
All right, so let's get specific. Thank you, Dr. Arroyo. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So we're talking about specifically engaging parents. And I'm sure that Dr. Arroyo-Stewart has talked about how engagement family engagement is a different beast than family involvement. Family involvement basically means that they're an audience and they are there, their bodies are there, they're listening. But engagement means that parents actually have a say. They actually drive the decision making in their child's education. And some specific things that we can do to assist family engagement, first of all, would be to create a welcoming school climate. If you put yourself in the spot of parents coming to a school building for the first time, many of them for the first time. Yes. This is a large, beautiful government building. I emphasize the word government building because that's scary. Everybody is nicely dressed. It's clean. It's very official looking. Everybody speaks English very well. And some of our parents find that very intimidating. And they don't know if they can trust us. They don't know if they're going to experience some sort of prejudice, even language prejudice. So creating a welcoming school environment would start with something like having translators available, having translation documents available, and understand too that not all of your families may be literate in their primary language. And that is something that I answer every year with some of our administration, because some of our administrators, bless them, they will say, oh, just get me some Spanish textbooks and we'll be fine. Not exactly, because some of our students don't read and write Spanish. So that can be a challenge. Also, providing families information related to child development and creating supportive learning environments. Some of our families have never experienced formal education. Maybe the students have had some, and I work with SIFE students, so I see this frequently. Our students will say, yes, they have gone to school, but school for them may not look anything like school in the United States. Right. So information for our families about what is expected in school, what they can do at home to help their students be successful in school, providing that information, whether it's written or in the form of meetings, that can be invaluable. Establishing effective school-to-home and home-to-school communication is vital. It can be in the form of, again, of having translators there, of having translations there, just being an available, kind presence. When I have teachers that are getting an ELL for the first time, they will ask me, what can I do? And I will always tell them, the first thing you do is smile. Yes. And then second thing you do is talk slower, because we talk too fast. Mm-hmm. But those two things can go a long way. Engaging families in school planning, leadership, and meaningful volunteer opportunities. It's important to provide opportunities for our families, not just to be present, but to make a difference. Yes. And find a way, as you get to know your students, find a way to include your families in the educational process. Yes. Everyone is educated in something. It may not be formal education. Our families may not be well educated in math or science or history, but our families may be very well educated in agriculture or in construction, and inviting these families to share their expertise in some way that creates a sense of belonging and a sense of pride. And that goes a long way toward furthering student achievement. Mm-hmm. Another specific is to connect students and families to community resources that strengthen and support students' learning and well-being. Some of our families don't know that that there are services available for them. If you live in Nashville, there are a lot of services available, and that's even those services are even available to people outside of Metro Nashville. Families may not be aware of things like Turk TIRRC. That's Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition, and they provide legal assistance. Conexión Americas, that is also in Nashville. Your specific area, your specific geographical area will have some community resources available. It might be churches. It might be local nonprofits. I work with a local nonprofit, and we teach adult ESL classes. We also have a food bank available and a clothing closet and furniture available for our families. Your specific community will be different than mine, but finding out what those resources are and helping your families to be aware of those is a huge support for our families. Frequently, we will have families that are not aware that they qualify for food bank. So they'll come to our office and they'll say, you know, I just don't have any groceries right now. So we will be able to provide them with some groceries to hold them over. There are different resources for every community. Your community will be different. Familiarize yourself with the resources in your community and find a way to share that with your families.
And in Bedford County, we have Department of Human Services that has a list of resources available. And I have a copy of that in my classroom. And some of them, you have to recheck them because they do change. But there are other ways that you could work with other government offices around you that you could get the information and then give it to your parents to help them out with food or whatever they may need help with. One thing that I wanted to share before, we have now a grant that was given to a particular group of people that are now helping the Hispanic community with rent because they lost their jobs, or utilities because they cannot pay for their utilities. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of ways, as Dr. Paraiso was saying. Okay, Dr. Paraiso, go ahead.
Okay, some things to be aware of. Never assume, of course, that your families know. They may not be aware of specific practices in their community. So just in addition to, first of all, being aware of their cultural differences, don't assume that they know how school here works. So for example, I have found with some of my families that if I've got a student that's having a problem, it is more effective for me to talk to the oldest male relative rather than the mother, just because their culture is patriarchal in nature. Other cultures are matriarchal in nature. So understanding their cultural differences, and then don't assume that they know how your culture works. Yes. So explain to them, give them opportunities to practice. So even something as simple as raising their hands to speak. That could be something that you can teach the children and have them explain to their families. Additionally, use visuals, and I want to highlight this for a second. We had, as we all did, we had a challenge about a year ago when we decided we were going to have some distance learners, and a number of our distance learners were ELLs, and we had families that did not know how to use any of our school programs. So we did a week's worth of parent workshop nights in Rutherford County. And we taught the parents could bring the computers in. We taught the parents how to use things as basic as how to turn the computer on, how to mute the speakers, real basic things. And then we taught the parents how to access the different curriculums, how to access the different programs, rather. Skyward, Clever, whatever we were using at the time. We created handouts with screenshots of each of those different programs so that parents could access not just the words, but they could look at the pictures and see exactly where to point and click. Something like that visuals, so important. We know that in the classroom with our students, but that's also the same for our parents. If you come to our office in Rutherford County, if you come to our ESL office, we have a sign on the door that says, please ring the doorbell. But we also have a picture of the doorbell on that sign. And we have a picture of that picture on the doorbell. So that's one way that we're lowering the affective filter and making it simpler for our families to know exactly what a doorbell is and that they need to push that. Again, back to number 4, making use of the resources available, finding out what's available in your community and using that.
Parents' engagement. Find out the educational background of parents. And the reason why I want to share this with you, and me and Dr. Paraiso talked about this, not all parents have no education. I had a parent last year that was a teacher in Mexico. So in her language, she was very advanced in the educational system. And she shared some information with me. So don't assume that they don't have any education. As you develop that relationship, you'll soon know that. Also, don't assume that your ESL student or ELL student doesn't have any education in understanding how to read in his first language, because he may know that. He may have that foundation, which research shows that if you are educated in your first language, then English becomes easier to learn for that student. So make sure that you get all the information. Not saying that everybody's educated, but let's not assume. That's why relationship is so important, because in the relationship, you will be able to find out what that parent and what that student has to give. And just because they're not educated, as Dr. Paraiso has mentioned before, doesn't mean that they don't have some type of talent to add. You want to add something else, Dr. Paraiso?
Absolutely. It's if we come from an asset-based perspective with our parents, not just our students, but with our parents, what do our parents have that they can contribute to our entire student body? Maybe it just might be folk tales that they can tell from their culture that we can somehow share with our students, whether it's live in person or via video. Perhaps it's they make one of our ladies makes the best pupusas in the world, and she is always looking for an opportunity to share her pupusas with other folks. That is something I cannot do. I cannot make a pupusa, but everyone has something to give. It might not be formal education, and that's fine. But coming from an essays perspective instead of a deficiency-based perspective with our parents as well as our students will not only enrich your classroom, but it will advance student achievement. Statistics tell us that students whose families are engaged in their education tend to not only score higher on tests, but they also tend to take advantage of higher education opportunities, advanced placement classes. So it's a win-win for everyone. Absolutely. Okay, how can teachers help families become engaged? Well, first of all, you need to create a plan. It's not going to just happen.
Yes.
So you need to create a plan to involve our parents in the process. Sharing courses with your parents. One thing that we do is we have literacy nights, family literacy nights. We also have adult ESL classes. I teach an adult ESL class at night, but we also have a list of local nonprofits and churches that offer adult ESL classes in the community, and making sure that that is something that's available to your families, and creating opportunities for these parents to plug in and to get involved.
Yes.
Creating courses with ESL teachers. I think of this as PDs, professional development opportunities. As ESL teachers, we tend to be very focused on the standards, and that's great. That's why we're here, so that's fine. but creating professional development opportunities with ESL teachers to maybe let's come away from just the standards perspective and look at family engagement and create PDs for the people in your community. Say, for example, you might have a group of young moms. This is from my personal experience. I had a group of young moms. They wanted to help their children with their schoolwork. Their kids were in elementary school, but they didn't know where to begin. The moms didn't speak English very well. So rather than giving them basic adult English only, what I would do at the end of our adult English classes, I would teach them a story. And I did this with my high schoolers as well. I would teach them a story in English. For example, the Three Bears. And I would give them visuals that I would prepare in advance, little figures or maybe a puppet that they could put together. I would teach them the story of the Three Bears in simple English. I would give the moms a chance to practice telling each other the story. And then I would tell these moms, you go home and you tell this story to your children. One thing that this did was it empowered the moms. Now they had something they could share with their kids in English. Mm-hmm. It gave them a commonality, something that they could do that other moms were doing in English. Mm-hmm. Then after I did a few of those experiences with these moms, we did Red Riding Hood, we did Three Bears, we did several. After I did some of those, I created a PD session for our teachers and said, hey, here's an idea. If you teach the mom, you teach the children. See, you give the moms some power. So yes. if you increase the literacy for the family, for the mother or the father, then you increase the literacy for the entire family. That is something that I hadn't considered doing before, and it made a great PD session. You need to look at your specific needs for your specific community and how you can provide PDs to strengthen your teachers and have them help their families. Another thing that I like to do, and you've got to be very careful with this in your particular community, I do home visits. I am in homes frequently. Some school districts don't allow that, or they don't encourage that. In my particular situation, it works out. I learn a lot about our children when I visit their homes. Yes. I encourage that. But always, always, always check with your administration before you do something like that. Also, if you cannot, for whatever reason, if you cannot do home visits, I encourage you to drive the bus routes. See where your children live. Go into some of the markets where they shop. Visit the churches where they attend. Find a way to see where they live outside of school. And your eyes will be opened as to ways to reach these children more effectively.
All right. Related to child development and creating supportive learning environments. One thing that Bedford County did, they shared Parent University, and what they did is they shared all kinds of information with the parents in order to be involved with their child's education. They shared what's going on in the classroom, the changes that are going on in the classroom with virtual learning. They also shared high school information about different classes that students would take, the ACT test, all kinds of information was shared in Bedford County. So they actually provided like a workshop to share this information, and they did things to make them feel welcome. The translators were involved in sharing this information, so they had it in their first language. And it really helped a lot of the parents understand. And I've got some feedback on some of that from the parents where they said now they understand what's going on. So this is one way to get them involved. Providing workshops and materials for parents, just like Dr. Paraiso said, have this stuff translated, but not just on paper. Speak to the parents, share with them the information. Support learning at each grade level. It's not just elementary or high school or middle school. It's all levels. They need to be supported. Partner with local agencies to provide regular parenting workshops on nutrition, family recreation, or communication. I spoke to one girl. She works for UT Extension in Bedford County. And actually, when she first came here, her and her sister, her aunt brought me in to help her to learn English. Well, today she is running a nutrition program in Bedford County, and she's willing to do workshops for parents to help them out. Have school personnel make home visits, just like she said, though. You have to make sure it's okay with your school system in that area, but just, when you get together with other ESL teachers and other teachers and you start thinking, brainstorm, see what way you could do it or what you can do to reach these families. And you will be surprised how much information other people may have that you never thought about, which will be good. Okay, and then Dr. Paraiso, this one's yours.
Again, talking about strengthening, and some of this we've talked about a little bit. Strengthening families' knowledge and skills so that they know how to support their students' learning. Some cultures, and you all know this working with ELLs, some cultures place a different value on formal education than we do in the United States. Some cultures hold formal education in tremendously high value and think that we in the States don't do enough. Other cultures don't place as much value on formal education. So learning your families and their backgrounds and how they feel about formal education will help give you a framework for training and materials on how to improve children's study skills in various academic subjects. One thing that I like to do is to make homework assignments that require students to discuss things with their families that they're learning. Find a way to include families in the homework. I gave the example of telling a story to your child with the young moms group I work with. Also, if you teach high school, some of your high school students may very well be parents, and they may not know how to tell a child a story. So I would encourage that same strategy with your high school students. If they are not parents, they may very well be responsible for younger siblings. So teaching your high schoolers things that they can then take home and share with younger siblings is a very valuable way to include families. Yes. Another thing that you can do that we have done very successfully is have the students record their coming to America story, either through video or through written text. We will have our students record how their families came to the United States and why they came to the United States. Now, that may be a touchy subject for some of our students that are not documented. I had one student one time that was making a movie about how her family came to the United States, and she said something about they had to cross at night with a coyote, and I said, okay, that's a great movie. You make that movie just for us, and then we're going to make another movie to show in class. So, be sensitive about that sort of thing. If you choose not to do a coming to America story, maybe a folktale from their culture, or film them making tamales, something that you can share, a shared experience between home and school. Have the children do a science experiment at home. You may have to send home the materials, but have them do the science experiment at home and then share their parents' reaction. Again, providing a directory of community resources, and make sure that is not only translated, but also that you use visuals. Offering workshops to share with families the expectations that their children have in school. Our families may not understand how important the ACT test is, and that is something that is vital to our students, regardless of their language background. They may not understand that our students have access to dual enrollment courses, and they may not know how that works. And my background is primarily secondary, so I'm thinking secondary. Our families may not understand something like graduation requirements or attendance policy. That's a big one with us.
Yes.
In some cultures, compulsory attendance is not enforced. So our children in their home countries, if they don't go to school, it's not a big deal. But in our country, if they don't go to school, the truant officer shows up and there's court, and it's a mess. So going over that attendance policy with your parents. We do something in Rutherford County periodically. We have a parent academy, and we will go over these things with our parents. Testing, WIDA testing. It's important that your students get rest. It's important that they eat a good breakfast. Or we'll go over something specific like how to sign up for free and reduced lunch, and have one of our parent liaisons explain the process in their primary language. Those types of experiences can be really valuable for your families. Mm-hmm. And finally, engaging families in opportunities to work with their children and setting goals. They may have been in their previous, especially if they come from a refugee background, they may have been so set on simply surviving that they didn't think about future goals past just staying alive. And now that it's time to think about that. And teaching your students how to set goals for post-secondary learning, or even summer goals. I want to read 2 books over the summer. Working with your parents on how to set goals for your students and why goal setting is so important. Yes. Those are excellent ways to draw families in and draw students in as well.
Yes. So we talked about involving parents into the school to help with the following. I know there are a lot of restrictions, and I know there are some, there are HIPAA forms and stuff like that, but we really need to sit down, I feel, as a group of people, and no matter what county you're from, and come up with some positive translation. So and I want to focus on, look at the sports. I saw that this year with one of our ESL teacher that she coaches a soccer team. The parents were actually involved, not just in cheering on their child while they were playing the game, but they actually stood at the gate and helped us take temperatures this year. You know how you had to take a temperature every time you turned around? Well, they were there taking temperatures to help us out as we collected the money. They want to be involved. There's all kinds of school activities that they could possibly be involved, sports being one. One thing that I did, me and the other ESL teachers at Harris Middle School, we got together and we had a Hispanic Month celebration where all the parents made a different meal from their country, Guatemala, Somalia, Mexico, Puerto Rico, and they brought those dishes in, and all the staff, it was so much food. It fed the whole faculty at Harris Middle. It also helped the staff members know the parents, because the parents stayed. We did it at a time too where it was lunchtime for 6th, 7th, and 8th. So all the parents that were involved were able to stay, and then the faculty was able to come by during their lunch period, meet the parents, talk with the parents, enjoy the food. Social skills was at its highest peak during that time for me, and I was so excited. There's all kinds of ways that we could get parents involved, and that to me was an icebreaker, because as a result of it, the relationship with the parents after that was amazing for me. You want to share some stuff that you do, Dr. Paraiso?
Well, one thing that we have done, and we've done this rather successfully in a number of our schools. Some of our families are not able to come to school for parent-teacher conferences on Thursdays at 4 o'clock. they work. The nature of some of our families, a lot of them are in service industries. So they are working second shift. They might be working at a restaurant or at a hotel, or they just might not be able to get off work. So we need to make opportunities. We need to think outside the box. So we need to think of opportunities for our families to come to school or to an alternative location if school is intimidating, and have a meet and greet time, a parent engagement time. One thing that we did successfully one year is we had a health fair, and it was on a Sunday afternoon at 2:00 at one of our schools. And we had the St. Thomas Mobile Health Unit that came, and they took temperatures and blood pressure and listened to hearts. I had hoped to possibly to check on offering COVID vaccines and doing that this fall, but I think that might be a challenge now, so I don't think I'm going to do that. But so your local health department will give you guidance. They can send someone out to do a nutrition presentation or a basic health presentation. Another thing that we included here was a dental hygienist that spoke Spanish. Our clientele at this particular building was primarily Spanish. And she explained, she brought toothbrushes and toothpaste and dental floss for everyone, and explained how to brush your teeth, how to floss your teeth, why it was important to go to the dentist. It was on a Sunday at 2:00, and our families could come. Something else that you may want to consider is Saturday morning at 10:00, offering that alternative time. That also was a good time for us. And some of our families are more available than on a weekday evening.
Yeah.
Looking at alternate locations, maybe having a parent meeting at a church where you know that a lot of your families go. Another place where we have had parent meetings, there's an apartment complex where a lot of our Karen families live. So we will have parent meetings in their community center in that apartment complex. You just need to think outside the box.
Yes.
Think of where you can go to meet with the families, where you can go to lower their fear and their trepidation, because this is all a scary experience for some of them, and looking at different alternatives.
Yes.
Think outside the box. Brainstorm with your colleagues at your particular school in your particular community, because those are all different.
So we're coming to our conclusion. We talked about parent engagement, and parent involvement is the foundation for student success, but parental engagement is success for both parents, teachers, and students. And so as we have presented this, I have really enjoyed working with Dr. Paraiso on this. This has been great. I've learned a lot, and I've shared some of the stuff that I've done, and I can see how, even in presenting this presentation, how much, Dr. Paraiso, I have learned to share with my colleagues at work. Go ahead, Dr. Paraiso.
Same. I've learned quite a bit as well, different ways to involve our families. And again, every community is different. So what we do in Rutherford might not work so well in Metro, and what they do might not work so well in Bedford. And that's why we can collaborate here and learn from each other. So yeah, this has been very helpful for me as well.
Okay, Dr. Clark.
Wow. Dr. Paraiso, Dr. Arroyo-Stewart, this was jam-packed with great information. Thank you so much for this session. We do have some questions, and so I'd like to share some of those with you. You elaborated quite a bit on various kinds of community resources, but would you sort of summarize, if someone were starting in a county that had and they really didn't know of any resources, and they just wanted to start beginning to search and identify community resources to support families. Could you give us a list of where you might start in a typical county? A list of resources available in communities.
In our county, I would say that definitely with the Bedford County education system, they do have resources that they could share. And also Department of Human Services has a lot of resources that they share too. Go ahead, Dr. Paraiso.
Okay, yeah. And that was where you used to work. So that was something that you're very familiar with.
Yes.
In your school system, I would find out who is in charge of your homeless students, your McKinney-Vento people.
Yeah.
Might be under federal programs. Check with your homeless liaison. You're required by law. Every school district is required by law to have one. And that would be the first person I would touch base with. They have a list. They are more than likely to have a list of all kinds of community health resources, food resources, assistance with utilities and rent, homeless shelters. And that's the first place I would look. After that, I would kind of branch out to your churches, your 501c3s, your nonprofits. And you'll just start building. One church will tell you about another church, and they'll tell you about this community center. And so you'll start building contacts that way.
And your school counselors too.
Mm-hmm.
Your school counselors have a lot of information.
A lot of times it is school counselor that is your homeless liaison.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. When you mentioned school counselors, I just want to remind you we're starting an initiative here to bring school counselors together as well. So we hope to do some cross-collaborative with school counselors and teachers of English learners. We have another question. You know, our districts are located in counties of various sizes, from urban to suburban to rural, and there are unique characteristics in each, but we have many small communities, many rural communities. So in a small community, how would you go about starting a parental engagement initiative for families of English learners?
Do you want to answer that? Or you want...
Okay. I would find that one parent.
Yeah.
Find that one parent that wants to help you. There's usually one, sometimes there's more, that they almost are a community liaison in themselves.
Yeah.
Not in an official capacity, but I would find that one parent and start brainstorming with him or her. I would also take a look, again, I keep going back to churches as an invaluable resource. A lot of times our folks, they go to their houses of worship, whether it's their church or their mosque. We have both in Murfreesboro. Getting familiar with your houses of worship. They are already doing this. They are already reaching out to their people, finding out how you can help them and building that relationship. It takes time. It's not something that's going to happen immediately. So I would find that one parent or those two parents and engage them and then empower them to engage other parents.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay, thank you. Another question came to us here. Dr. Paraiso, you mentioned a training that you developed for mothers. Mm-hmm. And this participant wants to know, where could they see the general outline of that training that you developed for moms?
Well, I can put something together if they email me. This is something that I had not heard of, so I just totally shot from the hip on this. I knew that our beginning literacy skills are beginning literacy skills. That part's not going to change. The content is not going to change. However, when you're teaching adults or high schoolers, you cannot teach them A is for apple, B is for baby, and expect them not to be offended on some level. So I developed a program where I teach using environmental print. I teach the alphabet using environmental print. I teach literacy using real life examples, and I teach common stories that their young children are learning in school. So like I will go to the school website and I crawl the kindergarten and first grade teachers' web pages to see what stories they're teaching. And I try to front load the parents on those stories. So if I know that they're going to be teaching the gingerbread man, I will teach my parents the story of the gingerbread man, and I give them something to hold, copies of something, clip art, whatever. And where I teach, I don't have any technology. So I kick it old school. I use a flannel board. Sunday school teacher for decades, we used a flannel board. So I use a flannel board. I put my figures up on the flannel board, and my parents have the same figures. So they are able to take those same figures home and teach the same story that I taught. So what I'm doing is I'm modeling the story. Only the parents don't realize that. They also have a printed copy of that story in English, in very, very simple English. And I'm teaching them that story. But they aren't offended because I'm not teaching it to them like they are children. I'm teaching them a story to teach their children. So I'm empowering them. And the reason that I thought of this was so many of my parents come to me, my adults, and they say, I want to learn English so I can help my child with his homework. Mm-hmm. Okay, here's one you can do. So that's how that came about. But if you email me, I can create an outline and send it. I'll be happy to.
All right, great. And please, everyone, remember, Dr. Paraiso, you could also post some information on our Discord discussion platform, which will be open following this presentation. Okay. So that's another good place to share information. And we'll give you information about how to get on Discord through our website. And but it's for the purpose of sharing ideas just like this. We have another question that came to us from a participant. Can you send us information about who to contact for English speaking classes that you teach?
Sure, I can send that in the chat later, or they can email me. I can make sure that you get that. And I'm certain that Dr. Arroyo-Stewart, you all have a list in Bedford.
Yes, we have an adult learning center that does teach ESL to adults here too in Bedford County.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Another question, is there a good app that could help us with informal translation conversations? What's a good app? What are several good apps to help with translation?
I've had a lot of people complain, that sometimes they don't translate that well. Well, the one that I use, Google Translation, has really gotten a lot better. And I've used it just testing it back and forth in Spanish. And I've also used it for students that were from Arabia and their language or different dialects, and they understood. So I think technology has advanced so much so that, translation is not an issue like it was 5 years ago on these apps. So I really trust Google Translation. It worked for me and my students. What do you think, Dr. Paraiso?
I use Google Translate all the time. I don't use it for entire documents, of course.
Right.
I use it to get by here and there. I don't know what I would do without it, especially since I don't speak any other language. But another app that I love is called Talking Points. Oh. And Talking Points is fantastic. It is, you sign your parents up. It's free, first of all, so your district doesn't have to pay for it. But you sign up at the beginning of the school year. You find out a phone number that your parents want to receive texts in, and you load them into the program. Then you can text them from your phone in English, and it will automatically translate that text message to each parent in whatever language you indicate. And then they can text you back in their primary language. You receive it in English.
Yes.
It is amazing. It is a huge time saver, and it really aids our parents in communicating. It breaks down another barrier. I know that Class Dojo also offers something like that.
Yes.
And the Remind app also offers something like that. But as far as Google Translate, I don't know what I'd do without Google Translate. I really don't.
And just like she said, informal, not to translate documents, just informal conversations,
Thinking back on the presentation you just did and looking ahead to teachers who are about to start the school year, if you could summarize what you said today, summarize a message from your presentation on this topic from each of you, how would you summarize your message to teachers regarding engaging with families of English learners?
I think if I could give one sentence, if I could put everything in one sentence, it would be, we are all in this together.
Yes.
Parents, school administrators, community, we are all stakeholders. And when our students benefit, we all benefit. These are the kids that are going to be giving us our x-rays someday, or making our diagnoses, filling our prescriptions. Yeah. These are the kids that we must invest in as a society. So yeah, we're all in this together. Find a way to make it work.
Yes. And I would definitely totally agree with you, Dr. Paraiso. Some of the students that were my students 20 years ago are actually working in the school system today as paraprofessionals, as interpreters. Some are working in banks in this county. So to invest into the parents and to invest in the students, but as you invest in the parents, those students will see how important education is, because parents are, they're the top example of everything. And if one thing I would love for everyone to take away, it doesn't matter if they're not educated and what we think it's education. What matters is that everybody has a source of education one way or the other. And let's use that to the advantage of the children so they could succeed.
Exactly. It's not how smart are you or how educated are you. It's how are you smart? How are you educated?
Yes.
And find a way to work those parent assets into your classroom.
Yes.
Dr. Paraiso and Dr. Arroyo-Stewart, listening to you today, I am energized, I'm motivated, I'm hopeful, and thank you so much for your time, your expertise, and sharing what has worked for you and sharing ideas with our teachers of English learners in terms of engaging with families. Very, very important.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us today.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.